Today we're going to be reviewing how to graph a line when it's in slope-intercept form. Let's remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. That's our format. M here is representing the slope, b is representing the y-intercept. So we have two steps whenever we're graphing a line in slope-intercept form. The first step is we're going to plot the y-intercept, and remember, that's your b, and that's going to go on the y-axis. Second step is we're going to use our slope, which is our m. We're going to use that to rise and run from our y-intercept point. So let's keep those two steps in mind as we graph our equation here. So our equation is y equals 3/4 x plus 7, and it is already in slope-intercept form. So my first step is I'm going to plot my y-intercept. That is my b. So I'm going to plot this point 7 on my y-axis, and that's your vertical axis. So I'm going to go up to 7 and put my first point. From there, I'm going to use my slope, and remember, slope stands for rise over run. So if it is 3/4, that tells me that I'm going to go up 3, and positive 4 tells me that I'm going to go to the right 4. So from my point at 7 on the y-axis, I'm going to go up 3 and to the right 4. That is where my second point is going to go. And if you'll notice, I've now ran out of room going that direction. I can also do the exact opposite. Notice that if I had -3 over -4, two negatives would reduce to give me the 3/4 slope. This would tell me that I could go down 3 and to the left 4. So I can start from my point on the y-axis and go down 3 instead and to the left 4. Notice now all three of those points are appearing to be on the same line. You could repeat again, 1, 2, 3 down, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left. Once you have a few points that you can use, we're going to connect those with a line. Notice to start with, we knew that we had a positive slope, so therefore I know that my line should be going uphill, and it is. If we look at the next one, we've got y equals 5/2 x. Notice there's something missing. We have nothing at the end to show for my y-intercept. So if we think about what number would represent nothing, that would be 0. So we can think of having a +0 out there. And that's going to tell me that my y-intercept is 0. So my first point is going to happen at the origin. We're going to use my slope. It is 5/2. They are both positive. That's going to tell me to go up 5 and to the right 2. So from my origin, I'm going to go up 5 and to the right 2. And I'm going to repeat again. We can also go the opposite direction if we want some points down in the third quadrant. Think of 5/2. You could have it as a -5 over -2 if you change their signs. When I do so, that's going to tell me to go down 5 and to the left 2. So from the origin, we can go down 5 and left 2. Once you have at least 3 points, you can connect those to make your line. I also want to make a quick note on our slope. So if it is a positive slope, both of those numbers would tell you to go up and to the right. Both of those could be negative if you change both of their signs, and that would tell you to go down and to the left. But let's say that you have a slope of something like -1/2. That negative will go either with the top or with the bottom. So for instance, you could say that that is a -1/2, which would tell you to go down and to the right since the 2 is positive. You could also put it on the bottom, so you would have 1/2, which would tell you to go up 1 and to the left 2. So when you have an overall negative slope, the negative only goes with the top or with the bottom, but not both. Just something to keep in mind there. Our last two examples that we are going to look at are two special types of graphs. Notice here I just have y equals -4. I have no x. So we have to think about what would my slope have been in order to make my x disappear. And the only thing that can make something disappear would be 0. So you could think of this as being y equals 0x minus 4. If that's the case, my y-intercept is at -4, so that's where my point would start. And then notice your slope is 0. If we remember Slope Dude, when we had a slope of 0, that's when he was going across the flat part. He was saying this is 0 fun. So think of anytime you have that slope of 0, you're talking about a horizontal line. So it's crossing the axis at -4, so therefore my horizontal line is going straight across at -4. The very last graph that we're going to look at is kind of the rule breaker. Notice, all of my other graphs have been in the form y equals mx plus b for the most part. Here, we do not have a y at all. So this is kind of my rule breaker. We saw in the last one that if we had just y equals a number, it made a horizontal line that crossed the y-axis at that number. Here, we just have x equals a number. This is telling us we have no slope here. We don't have a y-intercept. This is telling me that I'm going to have a vertical line, and that vertical line is going to cross my axis, my x-axis, at -9. So this is going to be a vertical line, and it's our rule breaker. So we're going to go to -9 on the x-axis this time, and my vertical line is going to go straight up and down. Here's why it looks the way, the equation looks the way that it does. Remember, if we have a vertical line, that's when Slope Dude fell off the cliff and he yelled undefined. So if I don't have a slope, then I cannot plug that into slope-intercept form. Also, I have no y-intercept. If you notice, this line never crosses the y-axis. Therefore, that is why the equation looks the way that it does. So anytime you have just x equals a number, that is a vertical line and it will cross the x-axis at that value. One more thing that I want to point out to you is if you have an equation that looks like y equals x plus 7, for instance. We know by looking there, my y-intercept would be 7, so that's the point that I would plot on my y-axis. However, if you look in front of x, there's nothing there. We think about what number is understood to be in front of any single variable, and that's a 1. So if I were looking at an equation like this, my slope would be 1/1, and then my y-intercept would be 7. Similarly, if you had something that looked like y equals -x minus 2, the negative in front of your x is referring to a -1, so the slope here would be -1, and the y-intercept would be -2.